Okay, so welcome to the live stream, and this time we're talking about the toys we enjoyed before Star Wars. So I can see we've got 10 people watching, so that's good. And we already have one comment to get to from Pontiac Bandit, and he's driving back home during the stream, but he'll join in. This will make the trip worthwhile. Well, I hope you're listening and not actually watching, because I don't want you watching and driving. That would not be good. We've got Blake. Hi, Blake. Had a giant Shogun Warrior, Getter Dragon, and Mego superheroes, Batman and Superman before Star Wars toys. Yep, superheroes were a huge part of this whole thing prior to getting into Star Wars. 80s and Star Wars guy. Hello there. Hello there. So it's good to see people are watching and commenting. So let me see. We've got 7 people watching, so that's more manageable, shall we say, than last time when there was like way too many. Well, not too many, but you know what I mean. It was hard to keep track of all the chat. So anyway, to start things off, we're going to talk about Lego. And I did post on Twitter about half an hour ago that having looked at some of these toys I'm going to talk about, it's more like all things 70s, to be honest. We will get through closer to Star Wars. But anyway, the first toy I particularly enjoyed as a kid was Lego. And if you look at these were pre-minifigures, and they're extremely basic. However, they're also extremely cool in as much as you actually built the bodies of the figures from Lego pieces, so there were no actual legs. It was just an upper torso with a head and arms. But you can see how cool they were for a kid. So I would have been probably 3 or 4 years old playing with these. Now, also in this line of figure, we had the controversial set, which I have already done one video on, which was listed as the Red Indian set. And the squaw even has her baby on her back there. Very simple toys, actually, and very easy to put together. However, very enjoyable as a child. And oops, I see we have a super chat, so let me just get to that quickly. It's Blake again. Thanks for another live stream. Love the channel. Keep it up, Dean. Well, Blake, thank you so much. Absolutely incredible. So generous and very much appreciated. Thank you so much. So anyway, as I was saying, this bit controversial. I guess you would call it the Native American set these days, and you probably wouldn't get away with making yellow people with bright red faces. However, at the time, we didn't know any better. There was no malicious intent behind this, but Lego was a huge part of probably most kids' upbringing. And obviously from those, well, they're certainly not minifigures, and not, I guess you just call them larger figures, perhaps. We did finally get our minifigures that we still have today. And in this set in particular, I like it because the thing about Lego was they gave us sets of occupations that were just everyday occupations. So in this instance, we have a road construction crew, complete with a Men at Work sign. And the little figure here, the mini figure, you can see that. I had a lot of fun with these, and as well as road construction, we had things, you know, police, obviously, fire brigade, ambulance service, mechanics. I seem to recall even a street sweeper was a figure we had, which was quite something as a kid. But they were all sort of virtuous jobs. They were just good, honest careers they would give us an exposure to. Not that anyone, I guess, aspires to be a street sweeper, but the point was they gave us sets and minifigures of everyday people that we could relate to. Things really took off for me with Lego when I discovered the space Lego. And this one, this cruiser, when I got this, my world completely changed. This was the beginning of something quite special for me. Up until this point, Lego, as I just mentioned, was very much everyday scenes that you would see as a kid. So people out working on the roads or serving burgers at a burger stand. To get space Lego was a whole new world, and it was something that I really got immersed in. I absolutely loved my space Lego, and to this day, it's still a toy that I look at with such fondness. So before I go on, let me just try and keep up with the chats here. So here we have Travels with Jason. Good to see you before Star Wars toys. Britain Army toys. Yep, we'll be talking about those. This is Blake again. Also had those clunky Legos and then got the very first space Lego set. Yep, exactly what I was talking about here. This is the Vomit Man. I remember those Lego figures. Yep. Vintage Toy Rush. Hello, hello. Stormy T. Yep, had the space Lego. And Commander Roy Fokker. Yes, we have a Lego Street Sweeper. I had it. Yeah, I thought as much. And the other thing about the Lego was it was for sale pretty much everywhere. I remember, obviously, mostly getting it from the bigger places like John Menzies, Woolworths, etc. But some of these smaller sets, they were for sale in newsagents. And I remember using a lot of my pocket money, especially on the space sets that came in those little boxes, just a very small rig, but they were a lot of fun. And also as well, the space stuff came with so many bespoke pieces. So you see the translucent pieces up here, here, even this part here. This was all unique to the space Lego. And the best thing about Lego, of course, was that despite the fact that the instructions told you how to make this, you could make anything you wanted. And that's what made Lego so special. It was, you were only limited by your imagination. So as a kid, I would spend hours just making up my own sets and having a great time with it. Some more comments to get to. Logan Dalgleish, G'day Dean. Great to be tuning in. Love the channel, mate. Well, thank you, and thank you for watching. Paul Pacific, another live stream. Awesome to see you. Well, thank you for watching. The Black Illuminati. I want a real AT-AT walker. Yeah, that would be pretty awesome. And Stormy T. Got the space Lego from Woolworths. Yeah, I think Woolworths was... Well, for me, Woolworths and John Menzies were the two major places to go buy toys. My local town had a newsagent. It was R.S. McCall's. They had reasonable amount of toys, you know, nothing to write home about, but I certainly remember getting a lot of Star Wars figures there, but a couple of small Lego sets. Of course, if you wanted the most up-to-date sets, you really did have to go into the big cities and into those bigger stores. But just going back to the Lego City and thinking back to how much fun we had with such simple toys, especially these older, you know, I guess you would call them first generation Lego people. Obviously got articulation in the arms, but the legs, as I mentioned, are constructed from Lego bricks. So there wasn't a whole lot of playability, but it wasn't really about that. It was more about building your own designs and creating something from scratch that really, really was the point of Lego. Is as much fun as it was to follow the instructions, building something from your own design was what it was all about for me anyway. So let's move on to action figures now. Now, I cannot remember what came first. I have two examples here. I'm going to suggest possibly that Fisher-Price Adventure People were my first action figures. And these things are absolutely solid. These are probably the most well-constructed action figures I've ever come across. Given that these things are 40 plus years old, they're still as good as they were the day they were first made. No looseness at all. And these figures, of course, are famous for the fact that Kenner actually used these to make the prototypes for the Star Wars figures. So when I look at these figures, I just remember playing with them quite roughly because they could handle that. These things were made to take a beating, and they absolutely did. And they still survive to this day. I mean, toys today, you cannot imagine a kid thrashing around with them and having them still last 40 years later. There's no way that's happening. But Fisher-Price did a grand job. And similar to Lego, they gave figures that were pretty much everyday people. So here we've got the medic, helicopter pilot. This was the parachute guy, which a lot of us thought wrongly was an Evel Knievel figure. That, of course, not the case. They also had a lot of vehicles, which were really cool. And again, quite simple, but very, very well made. There was no way those things were breaking. And my favorite as a kid was the motorcycle and sidecar. And we always used to try and force this guy onto the motorcycle, but his legs were not designed to do that. The actual motorcycle rider did have knee joints that allowed him to sit on the motorcycle. But because we thought this was Evel Knievel, we always tried our damnedest to force him on, but it never quite worked. But the next figure that I got is something that people in the UK should remember. And this was Action Jack. This was real budget material. This was actually a knockoff, I believe, of the Matchbox Mobile Action Command figures. So these were sold in local markets, chemists, newsagents. I can't remember the exact price. I'm going to say they were probably 20p or something back then. We're talking late 70s, early 80s. But it was a unique figure in as much as each figure had the same construction, just cast in different colored plastic, but it came with a plethora of accessories that allowed him to be anything from a cowboy to a deep sea diver and everything in between. And some of the accessories I still have. So this was actually a scuba diver's helmet, but I believe there was also a construction worker where that was actually like the welding mask. And it came with simple accessories, this being a walkie-talkie. And they actually did fit in their hands pretty well. And they held their accessories not too badly. This one's bizarre. This figure, I think, at some point was a cowboy because he has his braces and a neckerchief on. And I think they did a Red Indian set as well. But this was my first ever exposure to action figures. And of course, from then moved on to Star Wars. But I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for figures like this, because I just remember getting these. I would have been probably 4 or 5 years old and thinking to myself, wow, this is such a cool looking thing. And it came with such amazing vehicles. And this one especially because it came with its own parachute that you could throw up in the air, and it really did work quite well. So this, again, first exposure to action figures and very much a lasting impression. Let me get to some more comments here. We've got I Am Dave, evening all. Vintage Toy Rush. The blue and grey colours of Space Lego immediately take you back. Well, that's right, because up until that point, Lego was quite a colourful thing in its own right, but it was the grey bricks and those blue specialised pieces that really identified it as being space Lego. And to this day, when I think about Lego, I just think of the blue and the grey. And those colours did work really well, actually. Lego is something that I would like to get back into. As it happens, Lego is one of the few things I do have from childhood. So all my Lego I have with me to this day. So obviously these are all childhood pieces I was just showing off, but I have quite a lot of sets that I need to dig through all the bricks and build again, but there are quite a number of sets I didn't get as a child. So for example, this was my first ever space Lego set. And after building this, I just wanted the bigger ones. There were two other ones in this range. The ultimate one, I can't remember what they're called offhand, but it came with its own set with the base and a command station, but the ship itself was huge, and it would open out at the back to allow the little space buggy to go in and out. It was a wonderful set. I may need to look into those, actually. Loved Castle Lego. Yeah, I didn't actually have too much of that. I actually remember I got a few minifigures from that range, courtesy of Oxfam, because I remember my mum and dad were dropping some stuff off to donate to Oxfam, and I saw they had a box of bags of Lego. They were cheap as hell, so I thought I'll take one of those with my pocket money. And within that bag, there were a number of little knights that were pretty cool. So yeah. Now, wasn't there some issue with the color of the castle? Wasn't the castle yellow, if I remember rightly? Possibly. Dan Robinson, hello. Fisher Price figures were great. Absolutely. They were some of the best or best constructed action figures ever made, I think. Like I said, they have lasted for decades, and they're still as good as they were to begin with. This is one that I received as a donation, so it's obviously been through the wars, but it's solid. It's still stiff. No issues whatsoever with this. Fantastic figures. From it, man. I had an Action Jack, but only just found out what it was as an adult. When I was a kid, I remember thinking, where did this weird figure come from? Yeah, these were figures that were given to very, very young children, probably as young as, I don't know, 2 or 3 perhaps. And it's something that you would always see them at, when you visited people's houses. There was always not Action Force, Adventure People figures lying around the place or in the garden. They were very, very popular. Oh my God, Action Jacks. They came in a box. Yep, they did. They came in that little box, and I think inside was the plastic bag with all the figure and the various accessories. And the other thing about these figures was that if you removed the head, all the parts would fall apart. So you could, let me just show you, in fact, take the head off. That then allows the torso to split in half like this, and all the legs and things. So you could actually swap them around and make your own custom figures, which I think most of us probably did at some point. So yeah, Action Jack was a very versatile figure. The bigger Lego ship was the Galaxy Explorer 928. Yep, Explorer, that's the one. Yeah, that's the one I always wanted, but sadly it wasn't to be. But you never know. And in fact, in this day and age, you can, with the various, I guess was it Bricklink, etc., you can probably buy all the component parts and build one yourself, which is something that's actually something I might have to do. So stay tuned for that. It's Reynolds Reviews. It's Luke. Hey Dean, do toys have to be before Star Wars were made, or can it be just non-Star Wars toys of a similar era? I wasn't born before Star Wars. Oh, no. This is just anything that you played with before you played with Star Wars. So for me, I did get some Star Wars in 1981, or it may a push have been 80, but it wasn't until 83 that I really got into Star Wars. So yeah, it can be from any old era. What we got here? Yo, Dave. Okay. And hey, Luke. So yeah, so the Lego, I think, to this day is still one of the greatest toys ever produced. And it's still very popular to this day. And in fact, up until about, I'm guessing 4 or 5 years ago, I was collecting Star Wars Lego, strictly only original trilogy sets. And it got to the point where they were just releasing so many. I was rapidly running out of space, and I was getting a bit bored of them, to be honest, because it was almost one a month I was having to buy and try and keep up with things. They were pretty cool, but ultimately I view Lego Star Wars as very much more of a child's sort of toy and not something I was particularly looking forward to building a huge collection of. Has to be said, some of the sets they put out were pretty impressive. Certainly a far cry from this kind of thing. But again, I feel they just went overboard with the number of sets. And bearing in mind, I was strictly original trilogy, so there were a ton of sets for prequel and sequel that I didn't even look at. So if you are a hardcore Lego Star Wars collector, it's going to be a rather expensive hobby, and a hobby that requires a lot of space. So something that was not an option for me, shall we say. Would have liked to have had more, but I got to the point where it became a chore almost to keep building them, because like I said, buying them almost one a month at least, and the excitement of it just kind of disappeared pretty fast. So I moved on from Star Wars Lego, sold all my sets, and bought a guitar, I think. Here's Luke again. Two biggest lines I played with in the 80s, aside from Star Wars, are two lines I'm now recollecting and loving, which is Mask and G1 Transformers. Well, you and me both. Absolutely. I think if I remember correctly, after Star Wars, it was probably mid-84 that I lost interest and then moved immediately into Action Force and was with that for not a very long time before discovering Transformers. And from Transformers, discovered Mask, and then sadly that was the end of my Star Wars or toys collecting era, which was a bit of a shame, but you know, it happens. We grow up, we move on. But yeah, so Mask and G1 Transformers, fantastic toy lines. And as you've seen from my videos, I'm currently really heavily into the G1 Transformers, and I've got a ton of stuff to make videos about. Also, after close to 4 decades, well, actually 3.5, I just rewatched the first series or the first season of the cartoon, and it was good because I had absolutely no memory whatsoever from it as a child. So I was going into watching it completely fresh, thoroughly enjoyed it, and I will do a review of that quite soon. We got Bearded Geek Toy Reviews. Love the channel. We'll catch up with a live stream later at 7:20 in the UK, and about to watch Zack Snyder's Justice League. Keep up the good work. Well, thank you. I'm under the impression there's a bit of controversy regarding this and a live stream or something. Thankfully, it's not something that was of any interest to me, but when I went onto YouTube this morning, it was just a ton of videos talking about Zack Snyder dissing some channel that was doing some work for charity or something. I don't know, but maybe someone can let me know what's going on. But thankfully, not my concern. Thomas Finnell. Other than Star Wars, I was into He-Man, and G.I. Joe action figures. Yeah. Sadly for me, I never was able to get into He-Man simply because my mum and dad told me that if I couldn't have both Star Wars and He-Man. I had to pick one. And because I was so heavily invested into Star Wars, I just had to let He-Man disappear and never owned any as a child. But a subscriber and a Patreon member, Anthony, has kindly sent me some of his He-Man figures. So it's nice to actually get some in my possession. And I do remember playing with them at school on like the last day of term before summer holidays and thinking, my God, I really want to get these. And then when I went home, told my mum, oh, I need to get some He-Man figures. She said, well, by all means, but if you buy them, you can't buy Star Wars. So, of course, I had to go with Star Wars. Luke, again, currently chasing a Switchblade. Getting one in good condition for a reasonable price is proving difficult. Yeah, I would say with Mask, the quality of the construction of these isn't quite the same as the construction of Star Wars vehicles. I found the Mask toys to be particularly fragile, with many small breakable parts and a lot of losable parts, as you would have seen when I did the restoration of the Outlaw truck. I had to source all the various components because they are easily lost, and finding a Mask item that is complete, in good condition, with good stickers is nigh on impossible unless you're prepared to pay the prices for brand new sealed items. So yeah, Mask it's a great line to start collecting again, but I think it's a very hard line to collect in good condition. I guess if you're prepared to restore and buy all the parts separately, it's a bit of fun actually. But yeah, Mask is hard to get for a good price in good condition. Let's see. Yeah, I love the Mask cartoons. However, lost a bit of interest in season 4. I think it was when they just started racing each other. Yeah, I think by the time they were doing all the racing storylines, I had stopped watching. So as a result, I'm not at all familiar with those toys. And should point out as well, when they did the Split Seconds series, by that point, I was no longer collecting Mask. So really, for me, it's only the first 2 waves of Mask that I recall. So talking about action figures, this, of course, being a figure, another great toy line that I enjoyed before getting into Star Wars was, of course, Action Man. And the question I have is Action Man a figure or a doll? Because I've heard it being said before that if a figure has removable clothing, then he is a doll. I always thought of him as a figure, but I can see the argument to suggest that maybe he was a doll. But sadly, I don't have one at this point. I had quite a few as a child, and it was a figure or a doll that I really enjoyed for the fact that once you got the doll, okay, we'll keep calling it a doll, but unless someone corrects me, we'll call it a doll. Once you got your doll, you could buy packs of different clothing and different accessories. So, for example, if you got a tank commander in the box, you could go out and buy the Space Ranger costume, or I think they may have done a Western cowboy one. Don't quote me on that, but there was certainly an Apache Indian set. I remember that. You also had the German line, which some of it might be controversial these days, but it was such a versatile toy to have. And I always remember having his duffel bag and packing it with what I thought he would need to go out on adventure. And it was just such a thrill to dress him up, accessorize him with all the different weapons and kit that he came with. I think, if I remember rightly, I had one regular Action Man with eagle eyes who had the dark hair, and my talking commander with eagle eyes had the blonde hair. I also got the Tom Stone African-American figure or doll, and various play sets. I particularly enjoyed one Christmas when I got a ton of vehicles. They weren't official Palitoy Action Man vehicles, they were knockoffs, but they were huge, obviously, given Action Man's 12-inch scale. So to have a jet fighter or a tank to that scale, obviously the toys themselves were enormous. And as a 4 or 5-year-old, it was a huge, huge thrill to get such amazing gifts at Christmas. So those are the ones, or those are the memories I have of Action Man. But I'd like to know, is he a figure or is he a doll? Dr. Dave, howdy, hiya, Dave. Dan Robinson, after Star Wars, I got into G.I. Joe when they started in '82. Yeah, I think it was a natural progression to go from Star Wars into G.I. Joe Action Force. Stormy T. Evil Knievel Cycle had to. Oh, yeah. Fantastic toy. Not necessarily a toy you would collect a whole line of, because I think they were fairly expensive, because it was quite a package with the what's it called, the gyro. Someone can remind me what that was called. You know, the mechanism to wind them up. Oh yeah, fantastic toy. I always remember. Again, it was towards the end of term. It's summer, and someone brought one in to play with, and we used some of the school books to build a ramp. And this was like the best ramp we'd ever seen. This Evil Knievel was doing some of the best stunts. And of course, the teacher saw us abusing this textbook and immediately stopped us, which was a real bummer. Typical teachers. Where are we now? Digital Man. For me, it was Shogun Godzilla. Thanks for another live stream. Love the channel. Keep it up. Oh, thank you. Shogun Godzilla, I am not at all familiar with. And speaking of dinosaurs, reptiles in general, I, for some reason, was never really hugely into dinosaurs. I don't know why. Probably because I was so busy with my space Lego. Yeah, hopefully you will find a nice mask item. I mean, they are there to be had. I guess because they weren't quite as popular as Star Wars, there are so few of them, or fewer of them, on the used market. And as I said, in my opinion anyway, they are more prone to breaking than the Kenner Star Wars toys were. But hopefully you'll find what you're looking for. Galaxy 928. What was your pocket money toys? Mine was Pocketeers, Plastic Soldiers, and Corgi Cars. Yep, two of those we're going to get to. Pocketeers I'm not familiar with. But yeah, pocket money, definitely the aforementioned Action Jacks, because I think at 20 or 25p a pop, very affordable as a kid with your pocket money. And as you mentioned, Corgi Cars, Matchbox Cars, we'll get to those, but those were very much, again, something that kids could buy with their pocket money. Dr. Dave. I remember Action Jacks. They were little plastic soldiers, adventurers. They came in a box about the size of a pack of cards. Yep, that's exactly right. And I think the company was Star Toys, and they were definitely ripped off from the Matchbox Mobile Action Command. I think that's the name of it, Mac series. Because when you look at that online, you'll see that the head sculpt is almost identical. The only difference being the actual bodies of the Matchbox ones were far more substantially made and did not come apart when pulling the head off them. Thanks. Yeah. As long as you're persistent, you will find what you're looking for. As an example of persistence, we'll get to these in a moment, but this is something that's taken me years and years to find. Definitely worth the wait. And again, the other thing I'm finding is, as I'm collecting stuff again, the temptation is to go all in and buy as much as possible. But once you do that, then there's no more chase to be had. And the chase of finding these figures, for me, is part of the fun. I made the mistake when doing my Kenner Star Wars figures. My first purchase 2 years ago was the first 21 in one lot. So that covered the entire Star Wars line, got them in one lot. The next purchase was the entire Return of the Jedi line in one lot. And then I thought, well, it's nice to have them, but it's also nice to search and find each individual figure. So I made a concerted effort that for Empire Strikes Back, I would buy those individually. And that was far more rewarding. So yeah, my advice is, as tempting as it is to buy as many of these items that you want in one go, it's best to space it out and just enjoy the chase. I'm watching and enjoying it all. Great job. Well, thank you. Thank you, Johnny. Eagle eyes. Yeah, that was a unique feature or a new feature at the time. I remember still seeing the non-eagle-eyed versions in stores when I was a kid. So I'm assuming it must have been, what, late 70s, the eagle eyes came out. Looking back on it now, I mean, what did it really achieve? Because I know that some kids play with it so much that the little mechanism came loose, and whenever you moved Action Man, his eyes would fall from side to side. I guess it was a novelty. There was a cowboy, so I thought so. I'm sure there would be, given that I do remember there being a Native American costume for Action Man. Here we've got Action Man Village People. Yeah, I had a bearded blonde Action Man and Tom Stone. That's right, they were the Village People. And I'm glad you mentioned the bearded part. I don't recall if the bearded Action Men were still being sold in the early 80s. I remember seeing them, but I never owned a bearded one. But yeah, I remember there being a sailor who had the beard. Also, prior to the flocked hair, I remember they all had the painted hair. I was fortunate enough that by the time I got into Action Man, they were doing the flocked hair. But when you see the painted hair ones, they do look really quite strange compared to the flock-haired ones that I'm used to. Kevin says, Cherry Lee made the knockoff Action Man vehicles. Okay. Yeah, I mean, when I was 4 or 5, I didn't care that they were knockoff. I was just happy to get something of that scale. So if I remember, I had a tank, a jet fighter, and the motor car. I keep calling it a motor car, motorcycle and sidecar. Yeah, I think it was just the 3 I had. But man, did I have fun with those. The $6 Million Man was similar, I think. Yep. Maskatron was my favorite from that line. Again, it's something else I want to collect again, but it's so expensive. I did see a nice Steve Austin $6 Million Man for sale recently, and the price wasn't too bad, but the rubber on his arm had all sort of rotted, and it was kind of like stuck. And I think you can probably get replacements for those, like a Rubber Johnny type thing. But if I was to go down the route of getting $6 Million Man, I'm definitely getting a Maskatron first, because that was the one I remember getting for Christmas one year. And thinking to myself, my God, this is amazing. It's like 3 figures in one with the different face mask and remember the suction cup for the arm? And the other one was like a spring-loaded crocodile alligator clasp thing. That was, yeah, $6 Million Man, definitely on my list of things to get in the future. We got Ian Gamache. It's hard to break those Kenner Star Wars toys. I chewed on mine a lot as a kid. Hopefully no long-term effects from chewing 80s plastic. Yeah. For whatever reason, the Kenner Star Wars toys were solid. Yes, pieces do break off, like some of the smaller guns and things. But for the most part, the actual structures themselves have remained 4 decades later. Whereas Mask, I'm finding, is extremely fragile. And I don't know if anyone follows me on Twitter, but having done the restoration of the Mask Outlaw truck, Will, who had sent me the truck in the first place, said, "Oh, does the Poison Pod Shell launcher still work?" And I said, "Okay, tell you what, I'll make a video of that and put it on Patreon for you." So I was setting up for the video, put one of the shells in, launched it, and it came down and it just cracked in half. And that is something apparently that gold plastic from the 80s is especially brittle and liable to break. And I just proved that, yes, that is indeed correct. We should have kept them in better shape. Well, yeah, I mean, we all wish we could go back and take better care of our stuff and actually don't sell it like idiots and still have it to this day. But yeah, Kenner Star Wars is a very well-made toy. And here's Marcus, All Things Toys. How are we all doing? We're all good. Hope you're good as well. I had lead soldiers my uncle made, and there was a plastic mountain playset for plastic soldiers. Yeah, lead soldiers. So Britain's, I'm going to get to shortly. That was another huge interest of mine as a child. I think by the time they were selling them in the early 80s, they were no longer made of lead, fortunately. But yeah, those were some pretty detailed toys, and very great memories playing with those. So we got, let's see. He's Anthony. Hey, Anthony. I'm late, but I'm here now. Love this. Well, thank you. Thank you for joining us. Dr. Dave, I got my bearded sailor in the late 70s. Yeah, so I think, so maybe I'm correct in saying that by the time the 80s rolled around, they were no longer sporting these beards. Collecting is a journey. The fun is in the search. Well, that's exactly what I'm trying to say. 1 second, sorry. When I did my Star Wars first 21 and the whole Jedi line, whilst I was happy to get those figures into my possession, that feeling of joy immediately disappeared when I realized, well, that's that. I've done it. There's nothing else to get for these lines. So yeah, if I can give any advice, it would be when collecting something from childhood, take your time and do not rush to complete your collection, because once it's complete, that's it. There's no more thrill of the chase. Are lead figures the original action figure? Well, probably not, because I think the term action comes from the fact that they are movable, whereas the lead soldiers were, sculpted in one pose. And I would say, in my opinion only, that lead soldiers were not action figures. They were figures, but not necessarily action figures. Dr. Dave, I had the classic plastic toy soldier, also plastic cowboys and Indians. That's right. Had those as well. I also had plastic knights and horses, and had a cardboard castle playset for those. We've got Mark Telfer. Hey, evening, Dean. Don't want to upset you, but I'm munching on my fried pizza supper as I type this. Oh, man. Scottish chip shop food again. Man. Wow. Damn, you're making me hungry. I had a lot of Britons. Yeah, I think almost all boys of my generation had Star Wars, Action Man, and Britain's toy soldiers. I think it was just a rite of passage as a kid back then. Here's Anthony again. I was late because I had to run to the post office. I got a large-sized Kenner IG-88. It's 15 inches tall. It was the last large size I need to complete my part of the collection. Oh, well done. Yeah, that's a big figure. And that's the sort of hardest one to get, I believe, of the larger scale Kenners. Nice job. Kevin says, I love the Airfix toy soldiers in both scales during the 70s and 80s. So I have these. So I guess we'll talk about toy soldiers now. So these are the Airfix. So that's I don't know the scale sizes, but bigger and smaller. So you can see it's the same exact figure, just in different scales. Now, these, of course, are the Airfix, I guess, official toy soldiers. But my God, plastic toy soldiers were dime a dozen when I was a kid. They were for sale everywhere. And I mean everywhere. There were just these plastic bags with a cardboard header of plastic toy soldiers. Some definitely better than others. But again, these were another item that was perfect for kids and their pocket money. I don't remember the exact prices, but I'm sure we're talking under 50p for a big bag of these, especially the smaller sized ones, which is what, basically an inch tall. You get a bag of like 100 of these for probably 50p or something. And I guess with these being Airfix, if you were particularly accurate, these were to be painted. I never did paint mine simply because I think I wasn't allowed to have too much paint going on because I was quite clumsy. I was probably spilled it everywhere. But I've seen some people paint these with such amazing detail. They look fantastic. But for me, it was just setting them up and having battles and, you know, making them fall over and all this and that. And again, some of the Corgi and Matchbox die-cast vehicles you could incorporate in those games of war with your little toy soldiers. But after graduating from the plastic toy soldiers, I also moved into Britain's. We have one paratrooper here, and these definitely plastic with metal bases. So I had a ton of these and a few sort of vehicles and I was going to say not necessarily play sets, but you got special packs. I remember having one set which was, I guess, British infantry from World War II or something, with a. I'm going to make a fool of myself. I'm not sure of the correct military term, but like a RPG type launcher that was spring loaded that you could put little plastic missiles into and launch them. Of course, very dangerous because perfect size to get lodged down someone's throat. Remember having a lot of the German soldiers. In fact, it was the motor car. Fucking oops! It was. Why do I keep saying motor car? It was a motorcycle and sidecar. Britons that I had. That was the German army. So those were quite addictive actually, because you had to go to the specialist toy store to get the Britons figures, and you'd walk in there and it'd just be a plethora of amazing stuff. And you would see, so you would go in with the intention of buying a certain number of soldiers. You would see new ones. You'd have to go back the next week and just keep buying more of these soldiers. But these are incredibly well made and, of course, pre-painted, so there was no need to do that yourself, unlike the Airfix soldiers. But I still actually love seeing these, simply because of the memories that playing with these I have, like so vivid. And yeah, it's just, oh, what I'd give to go back to those days. So anyway, where are we with the chat here? Darth Bosk. I used to have the Lego Roadworks set and use the pickaxe for Star Wars figures violence. Yeah, I mean, I can see that. It's quite a lethal weapon there in the Star Wars universe. Love a pizza supper. Cheese and onion, nay mushrooms. Yeah, I really don't care for mushrooms. I don't know the fascination with mushrooms. I think the actual mushroom itself it's a fungus. It's disgusting. Why do people want to eat that? I don't know. Oh, here we go again. Had fish and chips, mushy peas, and scraps for tea. Oh, not bad for some. I was lucky. I had an uncle who made me a wood castle. It was brilliant, but sadly I destroyed it over the years. Yeah, I mean, I think also we were probably the last generation of kids who actually really played. I say that because whilst we had some video games and electronic games, for the most part, we still had physical toys. And we just played hard. We didn't know any better. Whereas after our generation, I'm sure it was more and more about playing video games, playing electronic games. And as a result, I think we did destroy a lot of our toys. But that was part of the fun because we were enjoying ourselves and really going to town on these great toys. That sounds like a Yorkshire chippy. Yeah, mushy peas. That's very, very English, is it not? Let's see. 2 miles from Yorkshire. Okay. Airfix was the best for the small soldiers. I used to paint them not that good. No, I mean, like I said, for a kid, I don't think many kids could have done a particularly good job on something this size with so much detail to be painted, which is why I didn't even bother trying, to be honest. Yeah, laughing at Tim there. I've kept my Britain's tractors so well built. Yeah, Britain's stuff was absolutely solid. And also same with Corgi and Matchbox. Those were toys that were made to last. And evidently they have, because there are still, if you look at eBay, there are still so many of the toys I remember playing with for sale, and there's still, the actual structure is intact, albeit the paint is chipped, but that's to be expected. But the construction of these toys was second to none. And it's just a pity that that sort of level of workmanship is long gone from our world. Gamley was my local toy shop. They had a big lot of Britain. Yeah, I don't remember Gamley, but I do remember going to the sort of dedicated model shops where you could buy your Airfix kits, all the paints and whatnot. They also did sell the Britain's soldiers. And it was just, also as well, these were like independent stores, which probably wouldn't survive in this day and age. But it was a wonderful thing going in, because the shopkeeper himself was obviously a fan of these things. So he knew everything there was to know about these toys. So if you had any questions, you could ask the shopkeeper and he would set you straight. It was a good time. My mate's dad made a war-torn street complete with bombed-out buildings and ruined tank for his toy soldiers. It was amazing. Yeah. Again, parents seem to be more involved with our toys back then, because I remember my dad being heavily involved, helping me with my Lego. And I don't know if dads today do that with their kids. I mean, I guess you wouldn't really see any kid today wanting a wooden playset being built, because he has all his playtime is probably in the cyber world with his iPad, whereas us as kids, we had physical toys, and I guess handy dads could make new stuff for us. But I remember my dad making me an incredible sword for role playing. And because I think we had a project at school, we had to make our own swords. And I thought, yeah, I've got the best sword here. This is amazing. It actually did look really cool. He painted it silver and everything. And one girl brought in a real sword. So anyway, Faithful World Baptist. Hey, Dean, so great to see you live. Well, thank you for tuning in. From Ireland, oh, welcome. My Darth Vader at the opening of Scotch Corner Toy Shop in Ayr in the early 80s. I was terrified. Met Darth Vader, sorry. Oh, yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, I mean, now, was that actually David Prowse, or was it just someone else? Regardless, I'm sure they would have got someone of a similar height. So, yeah, that would have been pretty terrifying as a kid. I could well imagine. Let me see. I had the game Tank Command, played it once, and used the tanks with my soldiers. Tank Command, something I do recall seeing but never owning. It looked pretty interesting, actually. And okay, so we're talking about the soldiers from Britain's and Airfix, and I'm wondering if nowadays are kids allowed to play with soldiers? Given that it does depict guns and all the current landscape we live in. It would be sad if these things no longer existed, because just the memories of going out with your mum even to the supermarket and seeing these bags of cheap toy soldiers for sale, it was such a thrill. And when you had your pocket money, you'd have a few, in my case, 10p coins rattling in your pocket, and then you could buy some new toy soldiers. Wonderful, wonderful thing, but I hope they still exist. So anyway, next thing to talk about would be die-cast cars. And in particular, for me, it was all about Matchbox and Corgi. So as I already showed you, this is what I deem as being a holy grail piece of mine, which was the spider buggy from Corgi, complete with the Green Goblin in his plastic bag web. These larger scale things from Corgi were so well constructed and so detailed. And sadly, to this point, in 2021, I've only been able to get the spider buggy and the spider bike in that scale. I need to get the Batmobile, Batcopter, and Bat bike and Bat boat, but those are some of the most expensive things I've encountered in my journey of looking back on all things 80s. So sadly, I don't have any of those yet. I have managed to amass a rather decent amount of Corgi Juniors, but I'm saving those up for a video down the line. I've got a few more to get, and then we can do a really in-depth video on those. But as an example, here's a loose Corgi Juniors 1966 Batmobile. And this is something I remember playing with non-stop. I actually had the whole set and used to attach the trailer with the Bat boat on the back of this, drive it around. They did do a ton of sort of weird vehicles, especially the Joker Mobile, which was just a repaint of an ambulance, but they put Joker stickers on it. But regardless, it was still pretty cool. Matchbox, on the other hand, I think they had the best packaging. Obviously, as the name suggests, it's obviously not the same size, but the concept and materials very much like a Matchbox back in the day. But these cars that both Corgi and Matchbox made were just brilliant. I think I've already showed this on one of my other videos. This one is, let me see. Oh my God, can't read it. Does it say on this? Yeah, the Guildsman. It's like a concept car, I believe, but for the late 70s, and this might even be early 70s. Who knows? Let me see. I think that says 19. Oh boy, I can't read it. But anyway, 70s some point, this type of thing, looking so futuristic with the tinted glass and everything. But these cars, when you rolled them on a smooth surface, these were fast as hell. And I always remember the sort of game where you'd play with your friends would be making them collide and have all sorts of crashes and just very simple toys. But despite the simplicity, they gave us hours of joy. And thankfully, I still see things like Hot Wheels for sale, so at least they are still making die-cast cars for kids to enjoy. Obviously not to the same extent that they did back when I was a child, because everywhere you went, there was Corgi and Matchbox for sale. To a lesser extent, the other company was Dinky. I don't ever recall having too many of those. And also what's interesting is it didn't occur to me as a child, but as I began collecting these again recently, that Corgi had all the cool licenses for all the superheroes and TV shows, whereas Matchbox were more about real-world vehicles. I mean, sure, they had a few sort of space sets. I remember the Adventure 2000 range. I had one set of those, which was, it was like a weird thing on Caterpillar tracks that launched a little car out of it. Amazing stuff. And again, it just goes to show you that you don't need fancy electronic toys to have a good time, because playing with this Batmobile, I had the best time ever. And it's something that I hope kids today still do enjoy. I mean, like I said, I'm still seeing quite a lot of Hot Wheels for sale. Even my local Walgreens has an entire section of Hot Wheels. No Star Wars, of course, but a lot of, you know, modern cars. So hopefully kids are still running about, crashing into each other, playing with their toy cars. So let's see the comments here. My local toy shop closed 5 years ago. Remember choosing birthday presents, mainly Skeletrics, the smell, nostalgia. Well, that's it. It's all about the nostalgia. And when you're saying that that shop closed 5 years ago, that's incredibly sad, because we are losing our history from childhood. When I was back in Scotland 2 years ago, it was extremely sad to see how much the high street has changed. We had the co-op, and the ground floor was supermarket. Upstairs was all sorts, underwear, furniture, paint, all this and that. But they had a toy section. Not particularly big, but big enough. And I remember going in there to buy Star Wars figures. And when I was there 2 years ago, they were actually demolishing the building, and it's completely gone now. Thankfully, the R.S. McCall's is still there. It's no longer R.S. McCall's, but it was still there. And I did pop in to see what it was like, and it's completely been rearranged. But I still remember getting all my Walls Ice Lollies, my comics, magazines, and got some Star Wars figures there. Got a lot of toy soldiers there. Got some Matchbox corgi cars there. So it's good that that store was still there. But other than that, the high street has completely changed, unrecognizable. It's all beauty salons and a vape shop. It's no more butchers or fishmongers. Still had a few bakeries, actually. They had one bakery was as it was when I was a kid, which was nice. They also had built new ones. There was a Greg's. I had this. People talk about Greg's sausage roll. I had it. It was all right. It was nothing to write home about. They also, what used to be the video stores. They had two video stores to rent VHS tapes. Those are long gone. Those are, I think, one was a greetings card shop, and the other one was a beauty salon or something. So it's really sad when the places you remember from childhood are now long gone, and the history is disappearing before our eyes, which is a bit sad, actually. I built my kids' Harry Potter Lego sets, but it's like building IKEA furniture. I like building my own Lego stuff with random bricks. Yeah, that's right. The Star Wars sets that I built, 4 or 5 years ago, it was quite boring because there were like, for example, the Millennium Falcon has so many panels that are the exact same. It was just an absolute chore building that. And I agree with you. Although, to be fair, the instructions nowadays are pretty simple compared to how they were when we were kids. Because I remember when you were a kid, you had to really study the instructions to understand what was going on. Whereas nowadays, everything's all in pre-numbered bags. And I guess they're just making it easy for the kids. Very cool. Very nice. I had some wonderful toys when I was a kid in the late 70s and the 80s because I was raised an only child. That really upset my brother. Good one. I like that. The Batmobile from the 60s TV show was so cool. Absolutely. And one of my favorite on-screen vehicles. And I just acquired a number of these from a modern supplier, and I think tomorrow I'm going to make that video because I'm dying to open them, but I'm having to wait to do the video. But yeah, this is just an incredible looking vehicle. It was incredible then, and it's still incredible to this day. Truly iconic. And also as well, by far my favorite Batman. Sure, the modern stuff is good, but nothing, in my opinion, can replace that original Adam West series. I think Dinky were more popular in the 40s and 50s. They were more my dad's era. Yeah, that makes sense. Because I remember as a kid, one of my parents' friends, he had a girl in my class at school, but he was very much into Dinky. So when they would visit, he would tell me that he preferred Dinky over Corgi and Matchbox. We're getting old. The high street isn't what it used to be. No, it really isn't. Even in the last 5 years here in New York, it's changed a lot. I was thinking about this the other day, the actual types of stores that no longer exist. So we don't have any more photo processing. We don't have any more bookstores. There's no more record stores. There are no toy stores. Even this past year has taken its toll on my neighborhood. We had a TJ Maxx, which I think is the exact same as TK Maxx in the UK. It wasn't great, but it was somewhere to go to look at stuff, get clothes. They had some toys. That closed down because of COVID. We had a Century 21 department store. Everything again, clothes, perfume, toys, homewares. That shut down. A number of local restaurants have closed down. And there's just nothing left to look at. Literally, I only go to the supermarket and Walgreens and Rite Aid. That's all I have to go to now. Even when I first came here to Brooklyn, which was 2008, we still had a big Toys R Us close by. We had a Circuit City electronics store. There were sports shops, all gone now. It's quite depressing, actually. And it's not going to get any better. And partly we are to blame because we all love Amazon. There's no denying the fact that being able to sit and click something on your computer and have it arrive the following day on your doorstep is pretty marvelous. But of course, by doing that, we are denying local shops the chance to get our business. And as a result, they're all closing. It's a shame. It really is. Travels with Jason. I still go hunting for toys, but now more in charity shops than shops. Yeah, that's true. As I said, for me, I've only got a couple of outlets to buy toys, the big pharmacies and the dollar stores. Although I've heard rumors that there may be a Target opening up close by, which, if that's the case, I'll definitely pay them a visit. But it's a shame now. But the thing about charity shops is because of the internet, they're now savvy to what things are worth. So if some old lady were to come in and dump off a big box of Star Wars toys, whoever runs that charity shop knows that those are worth something now and will research it and price them accordingly. Whereas, 10, 20 years ago, they would think if this was a last 17 Star Wars figure, they would just see, plastic figure, $1. But now they know what it's worth. So even charity shops are not really what they used to be. Had the Corgi diecast, James Bond, 007 Lotus, Esprit. Oh yeah, fantastic. I had the small scale one. Again, I'm not really up to what the scale sizes are. Numerically, I talk about small and large, but I had the small one. Carlo, Hyodine, Shogun Warriors, Godzilla, and Great Mazinga. Adventure People playsets and generic Legos were my pre-Star Wars toys. Yeah, I think the generic Lego stuff was, most of us of this age were our first Lego sets. I think it was the late 70s that they introduced the space Lego, possibly 78, but don't quote me on that. So for me, yeah, definitely the generic stuff and the sort of big block people. But yeah, just such an innocent time, wasn't it? We just got these simple toys, but we had a hell of a good time with them. Dr. Dave, my town has more barbers, hairdressers, and beauty salons than anything else. Exactly. That's it. That's all I saw when I was back in Scotland, where they had, they call it Turkish barber, traditional barber, ladies' hair salons, fingernail painting, all that stuff. Vape shops seem to be all the rage. And of course, mobile phone repairs, cell phone repairs. That seems to be the extent of the high street these days. It's all very depressing, really. I've got my dad's stinky cars in an old Crawford's biscuit tin. Now and then I'll take them out and line them up. Makes a bad day a good day. Yeah. Oh, so many good phrases in that sentence there. Crawford's biscuits. Yeah, there's a memory right there. In fact, biscuit tins in general, America doesn't seem to go in for biscuit or tins of biscuits the way the UK did, or hopefully still does. Yeah, but the old dinky cars, they were, I remember seeing them as a kid. They were definitely not as well cast as the Corgis and the Matchbox cars were, but I still remember seeing them and thinking, wow, they're still pretty damn cool. Didn't Corgi do cars in different sizes? I had 2 different sized Batmobiles and JB Lotus Esprits. Yeah, that's correct. So, for example, this is the smaller scale Batmobile, which came on a card back with blister, whereas the larger scale came packaged like this. The Batman series was the exact same, so you can see the difference in size there. So yeah, absolutely, there were 2 scales from Corgi. So this was called Corgi Juniors, the other larger one just Corgi. Lincoln Logs and Tinker Toys. Tinker Toys rings a bell, but I don't know what that is, so you need to let me know what those are. Let me see. I spent many a day playing Subbuteo with my friends and brother back in the day. Kids today wouldn't understand the joy we had. Well, that's exactly it. Anyone in America that doesn't know Subbuteo, it's basically table soccer, but rather than flicking the poles with the guys on it, they actually had little figures with a weighted base that you would flick to then kick the ball. It was a wonderful, wonderful game. Same with blow football, although I imagine, well, certainly in these COVID times, you couldn't possibly play blow football. But again, excuse me, simple concept, plastic football, 2 goals and a straw. You try and blow the ball into the opposition net. And of course, both people are blowing at the same time, germs everywhere. So yeah, that's not going to fly in this day and age, unfortunately. Good morning. Oh, it's Will. Hey, Will. Good morning. Hope all is well. Just out of bed. Matchbox, Airfix, Timpo, and Kenner. $6 Million Man was my best before Star Wars. Still have my $6 Million Man. Yep. Great, great toys you mentioned there. Airfix. I remember having a few models from Airfix, and I painted them myself. Never did a particularly great job of them, but it was the sense of achievement you had at the end when you actually constructed something yourself, glued it all together, and very similar to Lego, but a lot messier. Other hello, happy person. Patrick's Day, how are you doing? I'm good. How are you? Very good, thank you. Thank you for asking. Had those very Batmobiles, still do in fact. Yep, if you remember, the larger one had a few action features. It had the sort of chopping blade that came out the front of the Batmobile, which, thinking about it now, probably pose a massive safety hazard today, because it was a pretty fast thing that came chopping down. Also had small missiles you could launch out the back by turning a dial. And again, those things were tiny. They came out at a pretty fast rate, and of course, could easily go down someone's throat or into their eye. So we're not going to see anything like that anytime soon, I don't think. You couldn't play Subbuteo unless your mum had ironed the pitch. Well, that's right, because it came in a box, albeit a large box, but the pitch was like a felt material that was folded up to fit inside the box. And when you took it out of the box and laid it down, these creases made it almost impossible to play, so you had to get your mum to iron them. Tim says, I had the working floodlights and stand for my Subbuteo. Wow, fancy. Yeah, similar to Scalextric, they also done a ton of accessories with grandstands, spectators. They had the pits with the mechanics. I think, now, did Scalextric, did they do trees and things? Was that strictly just the model railways, which was Hornby? I remember seeing Hornby railways with all the trees and bushes and whatnot. But yeah, I remember seeing the stands and the floodlights for Subbuteo. That was a sight to behold. Who remembers Test Match? What a great board game. Now, is that the game that had Ian Botham on the box, where the batsman was controlled by pulling a lever, and I think the bowler, you put the steel ball down a chute, and the fieldsman had like a U shape on the base that you could catch the ball. Yeah, Andrew, let me know if I'm talking crap or not. But my memory of Test Match was definitely pushing this lever to make the batsman's swing, which was, if this is the same game you're talking about, yeah, that was a fantastic game. Cor, you brought back memories about blow football. Remember that? Whilst I don't like football. Yeah, the thing about blow football was you didn't have to be a fan of football to enjoy playing blow football. As I said, it's probably a pretty disgusting thing to do nowadays, just blowing on back and forth at each other. But again, the things we enjoyed as kids were so simple and very, very basic. I mean, what's more basic than 2 goals, a plastic football, and 2 straws? Wonderful times had playing these games, certainly. I also had a trailer for the Batboat and the Batcopter, all corgi. Yep, absolutely. Actually, there was a 3-pack available that came with the Batmobile, the Batcopter, and the Batboat with trailer. There was also a 2-pack with just the Batmobile and the Batboat and trailer, and all were available individually. And I remember Christmas, it was 80 or 81, the year I got this fantastic spider buggy. I remember actually getting a single large-scale Batmobile and the 3-packs. I actually had 2 Batmobiles as a kid. And again, before I came to America, those were some of the things that I sold on eBay. And I think I got reasonable money back then. Of course, the value now has just gone through the roof. And as with my Star Wars toys, another of my major regrets was getting rid of those. It was just, I can't believe that I'm now in 2000. Well, I started this in 2019, but going back to get things I had as a kid, I actually had them up until, in some cases, Star Wars stuff I had probably 15 or 16 years ago and sold. The corgi stuff I sold probably 2002 or something. So annoying, but what can you do? Who had a wood burning kit? I know exactly what you mean. Was that the kit that you could basically draw a picture in a flat piece of wood? It was almost like a soldering iron, wasn't it? That you would scorch the wood. I never had one, but I think I know what you're talking about. And once again, a toy that you're never going to see for sale in this day and age. I played board games just as much as my toys. Are board games classed as toys? Yeah, I would say so, because they were advertised in the toy sections of catalogs. They were for sale in the toy department. Board games were the video game of earlier bygone eras. They're a wonderful thing to have been part of. A lad up the road from me had everything for Suburio. It was like being at an actual game. Yeah, I could imagine. Although having the grandstand set up, it would have been hard to get over to flick the little players. Andrew, that's it. So Andrew, yep. So test match. Yep. That's a really, really great game, and actually worked. A lot of these sort of games that were based on real life sports never worked that well. Test match did work brilliantly, actually. Test match was similar to Suburio. You're spot on with your memory. Okay, thanks. Remember the real smoking start grid for Scalextrics? Yeah, that's right. Scalextrics, what I remember the most is the smell of the motors overheating. I can actually smell it just talking about it. But who also remembers taking the Scalextrics car and keeping the connectors on the metallic groove, lifting the car so the back wheels were off the track, and just playing with it, making them spin really fast? And that, of course, caused them to overheat and stink. I reckon I must have been given the Batman 3-pack. Yeah, quite possible. Just from looking at these recently on eBay, a 3-pack in unopened condition, and the box is pretty beaten up, but the vehicles inside are still brand new. At least $1,000 for that. At least. I've seen the Batmobile itself sell for $1,000. Do you think there will be a renaissance and old ways will return, or are we too far gone? Mental health is worse globally. We just need a sandpit and Return of the Jedi figures. Yeah, that's a really good point. I think we're way too far gone. Obviously, prior to the pandemic, I remember being in restaurants and the parents would just sit their kid down with an iPhone or an iPad, and the kid would just be playing away the whole time, not interacting with anybody. And I'm talking about, 3-year-olds who are already playing video games and playing with iPhones. There's no way that the current generation of kids would, if you were to give this to a kid today, they're going to say, what the hell is this? They just want flashing and animations and weird noises and whatnot. I sadly think the days of kids really playing with toys has long passed, and I don't see it returning, which is extremely sad, because a lot of the values we learned in life came from playing with real toys. And nowadays, kids today are just stuck behind their iPhones like most adults are as well, sadly. Remember Race and Chase, like Scalextrics, but it was a sports car chased by a cop car complete with a jump. I don't remember that exactly, but I remember there was a rival company, TCR, who I don't think ever were quite as popular as Scalextrics, but I think they made some pretty cool stuff. And that, what you're describing, does ring a bell. I remember seeing cop cars with flashing lights and siren sounds. My Scalextrics was a pretty basic figure 8 set, but it did have the sort of banks up the sides, and it had the section where the cars would cross over. And I did remember getting an additional skid chicane for that, which was really cool. Although I was quite naive in thinking it would be better than it actually was. But yeah, all in all, Scalextrics and TCR, etc., great action games, or not games, but pretty damn fast. And as a kid, I remember being blown away by just how fast these cars were going around the tracks. Amen. Yep. And well, marbles were big down here in 1980. All the kids were into it at school. Yep, my school as well. I'm trying to think. Now, here's my trick for remembering certain years. I break it down by what class I was in at primary school. And I remember playing with marbles in primary 4, which puts us at 1983. So in 1983, I was playing with marbles, and we actually had these drain covers in the playground that had these grooves on them. I guess it was to stop people slipping if it was wet. But we played a game, like almost like a maze game, where you had each took a turn to sort of get your marble from the outside into the center by going round the grooves of this drain cover. I also remember playing the game where you would use chalk to draw on the ground like a circle, and you had to knock your opponent's marble out of the circle. Yeah, I mean, again, well, didn't marbles go back to the Victorian age? So the fact that we were still using them in 83 is testament to just how good a toy marbles actually were. I always remember being amazed at some of the designs inside these marbles. They were like feather type things where the paint had been, I guess they squirted the paint in some way and then blew it into a ball. I don't know. You know what? I need to look up how marbles were made, because that fascinates me. Ghost Castle, what a board game! Yeah, a game I never had, and a game I wanted but never got that one. Looked quite impressive, and I remember it not Ghost Castle, but I remember seeing a board game that came with a VHS videotape that you had to play in conjunction with the board game. So that at the time was state of the art. That looked pretty cool. Correct. You can basically engrave in the wood. Yeah, so it was like a hot iron type, solder type iron that you would engrave into wood. I'm wondering, was there any risk of the wood catching fire? I'm sure if I had that, that would have been my objective, would be to get the wood to set alight. Andrew again. Does anyone have that brilliant game? I'm not sure which one that is. It was hard to place the beauty with the stands and scoreboard in the way. Yeah, I can imagine. It was hard enough as a kid to, if you played it on top of a table, to reach over and flick the little figures. Ghost Castle board game goes for silly money now. Yeah, sadly, most of the things we enjoyed as children go for silly money if they're in good condition, which obviously as the years go by, there are less and less showing up in good condition. I'm wondering if it's still a fun game to play in this day and age. Now, I have to say, the two Kenner Retro Collection board games that we've had, I did have the Escape the Death Star game as a child and didn't enjoy it then, and made no attempt to play it with the Retro Collection Tarkin figure. However, the Hoth Ice Planet game I never had as a child, and have actually played it with Mrs. 88 and thoroughly enjoyed it. We've actually played it, I think, 3 or 4 times, just the two of us. So I'm sure if there were an extra couple of players, it would be even more interesting. But that's a game that I would definitely play again. Very simple concept, obviously, but nevertheless, thoroughly enjoyable. $1,000. Yep, for a nice new minty Corgi Batmobile. Again, it's one of these things that we all had them as kids. Same with the Star Wars figures. We had them, we played with them, we enjoyed them, and we moved them on. Can't change that fact. And let's be honest, the fun we had as children with these toys is worth every penny of the asking price these days. That's in my opinion. My friend had TCR, the alternative to Skeletrix. Anyone remember TCR? Yeah, I remember seeing it advertised. It wasn't necessarily an inferior product to Skeletrix. It just, for some reason, was not as popular as Skeletrix. And Scalextrics is something that they're still making in this day and age, and I'm tempted to get a new one to see how it compares to my memories of the old one. I'm not at all familiar with what they mean by digital racing as opposed to the electric racing that I'm used to as a kid. But I would like to find out. So that's something, take a mental note to look into a modern Scalextric set. Let's see what we got now. Vintage Toy Rush. I still have my TCR in the original box. Hardly played with it either. Yeah, so was it inferior to Scalextrics, or was it just a different name? All I know is that Scalextrics was the brand of electric racing. Drawing by Hand says, I had Postman Pat board game with stores. We had fun with this game. Remember, my nan's teeth nearly fell out. I had the MB Ghost Castle well designed. So, okay, I need to know, how did your nan's teeth almost fall out playing Postman Pat? That is a great line right there. It made me laugh, so that's good. Jason again says, only way we will get back to old ways if suddenly there was no internet and no phones. Well, that's right. If the internet were to suddenly die a death, I think a lot of people would be extremely screwed. There's so much reliance on it these days. I mean, well, duh. I mean, because of the internet, I'm able to talk to people all over the world. But I think if there were to be suddenly tomorrow, there's no more internet, I would get by okay. I have plenty of things I can do. But kids today would not have a clue what to do with themselves, which is extremely sad. I remember there were some really cool cars for TCR. TCR, were they possibly a smaller scale than Scalextrics? I know that my Scalextrics, I had, the set I got came with 2 Formula One cars. My dad also bought the March 10 car, which had 6 wheels on it, which was very cool, but quite heavy and struggled going around the bend on my set. Yeah. I also remember switching the helmets on my 2 cars. There you go, a bit of useful trivia for you. Just got a new Ghost Castle board game on eBay. Wife thinks I'm crazy. Price was ridiculous. I'm going to open it. If you need to give me the courage, I'll watch your Mask Condor video for inspiration. Yeah, I mean, listen. Some people don't like opening vintage toys, and I respect that. My opinion of it is, it's to be enjoyed, and to enjoy it, you have to open it. Now, with something like Ghost Castle, I'm pretty certain there are no panels on the box that you can see inside. So you need to open it to see what you are getting, because I'm sure, I'm not suggesting that you've been ripped off, but I'm sure there are people who have bought a mint and sealed box item that quite possibly is a forgery that contains nothing but cardboard inside, you know. I would never buy something mint and box and not open it. That's just me, though. What we got here? Remember the yo-yo craze? Yep. Remember that. Remember having a Coca-Cola yo-yo. I was okay at, making it go up and down. There were people that could do all these fancy stunts. And remember, was it walking the dog? All those things. Yeah, yo-yos, again, another simple concept that we all enjoyed and had a great deal of fun with. Were never good, however. TCR was a bit unreliable. The jam cars were rubbish. Racing cars designed to go slow. Oh, that's no good. The whole point of these racing games was to go fast. Still have my Coca-Cola and Fanta yo-yo. Oh, there you go. So yeah, I was right, Coca-Cola. I remember seeing the Fanta one as well. I'm trying to think. I actually got a yo-yo in a Christmas cracker recently, either this year or last. I think it was last year. Plastic crap. It didn't really work. Didn't have enough weight to it. But yeah, it was nice to see it. Nice to see a yo-yo again. Did you ever play curbsy, throwing a football across the road, hitting the opposite curb for a point? Oh my God, of course. That was like a real talent to land the ball in the curb. And I think it would come back. If you ran into the middle of the road and caught it, you could throw again from where you caught the ball for an extra point. Wonderful, wonderful game. Open it. Yep, that's my words of advice also. Feel sorry for kids today. No chance of playing Kirby with all the parked cars. Well, that's true. Now you mention that, there was always open space on the road to play Kirby. Yeah. In fact, where I live, parking's at an absolute premium. And literally, when a car leaves, another car is waiting. There's no way you could play Kirby today. We got here. Crossbows and Catapults, 80s board game. Yeah. A legendary board game that, again, I never had, but remember seeing it and probably circling it for a Christmas gift, but never got it. In fact, I've mentioned this before. I got some of the board games I got were complete crap. I remember wanting Trivial Pursuit, which was all the rage in the sort of, I guess, mid to late 80s. And instead of getting that, I got the TV Times quiz game, which was just garbage. I'm losing my spot here. Okay, we got Will again. You would sit with your legs apart and put your marbles, and the kids would stand 10 meters back and roll marbles. If you hit the marbles, it was you. Hopefully they just rolled the marbles gently and didn't actually launch them at the special marbles. Jam Cars, now that's a name I haven't heard in years. Yeah, I don't recall that name at all. And Dave was laughing. Does anyone from the UK remember the hacky sack craze? Certainly do. I remember it was pink and yellow. And it was like basically keepy uppies, but without the bounce of a ball. In fact, it was actually pretty damn hard. But remember all sort of tricks like inside foot, outside of the foot, over your head, onto your shoulder, and all this. Yeah, it was a craze. It didn't last particularly long, but it was reasonably fun for a short time anyway. You should look at a channel called Anno. Oh, of course, Tony from Analog Toys. Yeah, absolutely. His collection and knowledge of Action Man is second to none. It's absolute joy to behold. Stunning collection he has there. I remember hacky sacks. Never had one though. Yeah, it was fun for maybe 10 minutes. Yes, marbles and then yo-yos with Coca-Cola and Fanta were huge. So I'm wondering why was it that Coca-Cola and Fanta were the main names seen on yo-yos? Because like I said, when you mentioned yo-yo, I just thought, oh yeah, I got Coca-Cola YOLO. And that's another comment talking about the Fanta and Coca-Cola yo-yos. Interesting. TCR was slotless and relied on magnets to keep the cars on track. They didn't really work, and the jam cars were daft. All right, so magnets to keep it on track. So, yeah, I guess Scalextrics won that battle. We've got Duncan was a big yo-yo brand. So cool. I honestly do not remember. I think TCR cars were smaller. Yeah, I think that's right. You know what? I'm going to go and do another of those looking at old toy catalog videos quite soon. And I'll make a point of focusing on the Scalextrics TCR thing. Does your wife support your action figure purchases, or do you have to sneak as I do? My mask collection is almost complete, so thankfully it doesn't realize there's a new one on the shelf. No, I've mentioned this before. I'm extremely, extremely fortunate in that wife number 2 is unbelievably supportive of what I do. And I can honestly say, if it wasn't for her, the chances are I wouldn't be here today. And that's not me being dramatic. That's just the truth. I'll maybe go into more detail in a separate video about the struggles I've faced in the past. But no, Mrs. 88 is an absolute joy when it comes to this stuff. I mean, even yesterday, I just took delivery of 4 different scales of classic Batmobiles, and it's basically the same vehicle, just in different sizes. And she says, "Oh, it looks the same." I went, "Yeah, but it's a different scale." She goes, "Oh, you could make a cool display with those." I was like, "Wow, thank you." I'm sure a lot of wives out there would not be happy at their husbands acquiring 4 of the exact same car in different sizes, but I'm extremely, extremely fortunate. Analog Toys is a good channel. No, that's actually not correct. Analog Toys is an amazing channel. Will, again, learning has gone from toys, Lego, you got a box and you would make what was in your head. Nowadays, you get a box with Lego and you make what was in their head. Imagination taken away. Yep, exactly. And the other thing about Lego back in the day was that aside from the actual model you were buying, they also gave you ideas by showing what could be done with those bricks. And then, of course, what you could then invent yourself. And I mentioned, I found the instructions in today's Lego to be so dumbed down for the kids, whereas the instructions for the older stuff, whilst it was by no means complex, you had to do a bit of thinking to realize what they were implying with the instructions. Mark Telfer, I destroyed a Rubik's Cube moving the stickers to get all the sides the same color. I did that once, and I remember clear as day, we're talking close to, 40 years ago. I changed one side by moving the stickers. I said, "Hey, look what I've done." And one of my mom had her friend and her husband were out visiting us. And he said, "Hey, did you move the stickers?" I went, "Yeah." He went, "You can't do that because it's going to mess up all the other sides." So he had to then put the stickers back to where I moved them from. But then he showed me a trick that if you took a screwdriver and wedged it in, you could take all the pieces off and then put it back together again with all the sides matching. To clarify, my wife doesn't support. She always saw my reference to Linda Carter in the last live stream and hasn't moved on. These live streams are dangerous. Yeah, I think I'm quite fortunate because I remember pre-lockdown we were in Starbucks and we were sitting at the window and there were people walking by. We just like people watching, and this one girl stopped to adjust something in her shopping bags, and she actually bent down right in front of where I was sitting with a low-cut top on. And of course my eyes were bling, and my wife nudges me, "Oh, you like what you see?" I went, "I can't lie," and she just laughed about it. So yeah, I'm very fortunate with that in that aspect. I had a Sprite professional yo-yo. So again, with the soft drinks, what was it about soft drink manufacturers and yo-yos that went hand in hand? My wife is supportive, Andrew, but I think every collector's nightmare is their wife selling it for how much we said it cost. Yeah, I could imagine. We've never discussed prices with Mrs. 88, so that's something. But yeah, I could imagine. You come in with a last 17 Star Wars. Oh, I only paid $5 for it. Don't worry. And then she sells it for $5. Yeah, I could imagine that being a bit of a worry. So here's Mark again. Kirby or fish and chips against the wall? You're jogging a memory here about fish and chips against the wall. But I'm not remembering that game at all. My daughter thinks my mask collection is awesome and eyed up as inheritance. Well, that's good. That's good that you're keeping the younger generation interested in these things. Still got my Wheatos yo-yos. Now we've got some breakfast cereal doing yo-yos. Wheatos. Do they still make those? I always remember Weetabix being a real favourite of mine. They still make them. I still see these occasionally on import in America, and they're damned expensive. My nan was laughing so much playing the game, putting straw in her mouth and dribbling. Play Postman Pat, Operation. Okay, I get it now. So her teeth almost came out because she was laughing so hard. Well, that you see, that's another thing. Like families all used to get together and play these games. I remember, in fact, I remember being in Thailand a couple of years back with my wife's family. It was a beautiful night, as it is most nights. We're sitting outside, and every single person was sat looking at their phone. And I thought to myself, man, is this what life is all about these days? What was the last Hibs match you got along to? Oh, Edinburgh Derby, 2-1. Steve Mallon with a cracker to make it 1-0. And then that clown, I forget his name, the big donkey, Uche, whatever, scored a deflection. The young boy scored a deflection. And of all the people to score the winner, that fucking clown Uche with his step overs and things, yeah, Edinburgh Derby, not a good memory. Actually, I've got a terrible record going back to Hibs games. Since I've been in America, I was at one game against Rangers where Anthony Stokes scored in under 10 seconds and we went on to lose 4-1 or something. Another game I remember losing to Kilmarnock, and I think Tam McManus scored 2 penalties but still lost the game. Yeah, I'm probably a bit of a voodoo when it comes to attending Hibs games. My dad bought a TCR truck Jam Raceway set in 1980 or so. I was 4 years old at the time, but still remember how much fun we had with this set. Yeah, it's all about having fun with your parents playing with us. Like I said, I don't see that happening so much these days. Football against the wall was called Granny round my way. Nah, I don't call that. Granny, never heard that before. Yeah, me neither. The yo-yos were sold by Coca-Cola or were part of a giveaway, if I remember. Or maybe one of these things where you collected the ring pulls from the cans or something, or the bottle tops. Because in the past, I used to get parcels delivered to my friend's house. Yeah. Played Bloody Knuckles in 80s school. The winner strikes the loser's knuckles with a deck of cards. Yep. So you've got a deck of cards, and you would cut the cards. Whoever had the highest number got to hit the other person on the knuckles with that full deck of cards. And of course, as the name suggests, your knuckles would bleed. And thinking about this again in terms of health and safety, your bleeding knuckles would bleed all over the deck of cards, then someone else would hit your knuckles, they would bleed, and I'm sure we all changed blood, and those were the days. Hail Mrs. 88. We all need a good woman or a man who understands our passions. Yeah, absolutely. As she said, if I were out spending my money on drugs or whatever, she would have a problem with that, and rightly so. But what I'm doing is completely harmless. It gives me a lot of joy. It keeps me sane, which is very important. And all in all, it's not a bad thing to be passionate about. Still have the scars. Yeah, of course. I mean, we're talking like serious bloodshed with this game of, we used to call it raps, not bloody knuckles. I have the Tomy robot on my desk, retro goodness. Yeah, all about remembering things that gave us joy then, that still give us joy. That's really what it is all about. One fella got it in the nuts and then came back off his nuts. hit the marble. So he lost his marble and had a high voice for a week. Mousetrap, brilliant game. And Operation had fun with these games. Mousetrap, yes, although it's a bit of an anticlimax because the way it was presented on the box, you thought it was this amazing thing with the ball going around the thing, and then the diver falling into his or diving into his pool, and the boot kicking the thing round, and the little trap coming down. It didn't always work, but yeah, it was a good concept. Operation, yeah, I remember that. I also remember the game very similar, where it was like a wire that was bent in a weird sort of wavy shape, and you had to like carefully move the wand round it and not touch the sides. And they used to sort of advertise it as you would get an electric shock. It was just like a buzzing sound, but you could feel a little bit of sensation in your hand. Linda Carter helped me through puberty. Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. Stunning. Really was. It's kind of funny that as kids we didn't think about anything of these toys, and now as adults we just want them back. Well, that's exactly it. I still remember when I lost interest in Star Wars, and those were thrown into the back of my wardrobe, and I moved on to Action Force. And to think that I would reject Star Wars figures it's hard to believe, but that's what we did. We need an Iron Brew yo-yo. Yeah, very cool. Actually, I think it was Mark who sent me the other day on Facebook some of the Iron Brew commercials that have been on recently. I was like, wow, I can't believe they get away with that, but they were absolutely hilarious. We just had a bowl of Weetabix for my supper. Wow. Now, do you put on sugar and milk? Because I remember one boy at school used to put butter on his Weetabix, which I thought was odd. I was definitely milk and sugar. Kids love yo-yos, so maybe put fizzy drink on them. Kids will come to love that drink, maybe. Yeah, probably. But yeah, Coca-Cola and Fanta were the two main ones I remember. Badger, hi, sorry, better late than never. Wheatos still have here in the UK. Wow, that's cool. Now, do you still get free gifts in boxes of cereal? Because that was always the highlight of getting a new box of cereal, was the free gift. I remember the Weetabix stickers were a favorite of mine. I actually, in America, I got, it must have been for the Revenge of the Sith movie, lightsaber spoons, which were pretty damn cool. Kilmarnock, yeah. I'm trying to think as well, because on the last trip back to Scotland, I took in a League Cup game. I think it was Morton. It was a terrible game that went to extra time, believe it or not. And then, of course, that ill-fated derby against the Scumbos. Butter on Weetabix, definitely a Scottish kid. Yeah, I couldn't possibly imagine doing that. Actually, I've missed a few here. Chinese burns. Oh yeah, that's. I actually sometimes play that with my wife, where you grab someone's wrist like so, but you do it like this. Oh my God, the pain was excruciating. We called it Knuckle Duster, so that's, I guess, the card game. Yeah, so we've got Bloody Knuckles, Knuckle Dusters, and Wraps. Yep, milk and sugar, the way it should be. We've got here butter on a Weetabix, definitely a Scottish kid, yeah. But my dad used to do this with butter and jam on Weetabix. Wow, crazy. Hey, Anthony, what was your favorite Fisher-Price Adventure People toy? Mine was the parachute with whatever figure I had close. Mine would have been the parachute jumper, but my actual favorite was the motorcycle and sidecar. Absolutely loved that, and something I may have to track down again. Remember the bicarbonate of soda? Freebie ships with subs and serials. Bicarbonate of soda freebie. Ships and subs. Not really remembering that one. I lived in Scotland for 3 years, afraid to say support the Dons. Want to live back there as less crowded and breathtaking scenery. Do you ever wish you were back? Yeah, I do actually. Although, in saying that, when I was back for 3 months in 2019, I realized that everything had changed so much that it wasn't how I remembered it. And as a result of that, I decided I can't come back to live. I would like to come back again for extended visits, but I don't think I could live there again. And also, as well, let's be honest, the weather is dreadful in Scotland. It really is. A lot of my memories of childhood are of glorious summer days, but those really were few and far between. I don't know why the weather is so bad in Scotland. Free gifts and cereal these days, not a chance. The HSE would have an aneurysm. Yeah, that's pretty sad, isn't it? Remember those things you got in cereal that you put in the oven to shrink and make key rings? Vaguely, but I don't think I ever had one. Is it bad to mix vintage figures with custom repro figures? Not at all, and it should be encouraged. Absolutely. Some of the Stan Solo customs fit in perfectly with the classic Kenner figure. So absolutely, yes, do mix them. It's a good thing. Friend had a Weetabix with water rather than milk. Come on. You've got to be kidding me. That would be horrendous. Aberdeen had a bit of a microclimate. Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? And we got always pissing down and around Glasgow. Though when heading, yeah, I know that. I remember when I was in Scotland there was one moment where the sun was shining, but it was raining at the same time. It was bizarre. And of course, there's always the thing where it's pissing down with rain, and then 5 minutes later, it's a completely blue sky. Then 10 minutes later, there's hailstones coming down. It's a strange climate, that's for sure. What's worse, a cereal box toy or a McDonald's toy? I never had any McDonald's toys. I can't really comment on those, but I think for me, the cereal box toys were such a thrill to get as a kid. So I'm going to pick those. Saw snow on the roof of cars in July in Aberdeen. Yeah, it doesn't surprise me. I don't know why the hell Scottish weather is famous for being weird and terrible. Do you think Hasbro will make Kenner Star Wars vehicles for the retro collection, or will they stay with the expensive vintage collection vehicles that are insanely hard to find? I think you've answered your own question. They're going to stick with the expensive stuff that's hard to find. It blows my mind that Hasbro has the license to redo all these classic Kenner vehicles and playsets and all the figures, but they're not doing it. And I don't know why, because people like us are going to snap them up. Look at the 2 waves of retro collection figures. Impossible to find in shops, a scalper's dream, and yet they're not making more. And the fact that the 3rd wave is Mandalorian still blows my mind. Yes, I have them pre-ordered because I do like them, but they should have been going back. And if they really want to keep the Jedi line for the 40th anniversary, go back and give us more Empire and Star Wars figures. But no, they went straight to Mandalorian, which in itself is a modern line and is doing particularly well with Black Series and Vintage Collection. There's no reason to do them retro. But anyway, who knows? Everything Hasbro seems to do doesn't make sense, so that's the only sense I can make of that. Scotland has all the weather all the time. Yep. Wimpy Toys were better. They did an A-Team range. Wow, that would have been cool. Might need to see what those look like. Retro Collection was a massive letdown. No C-3PO. Yeah, no R2-D2, no C-3PO. And yet, Stan Solo has proven that he can do these figures with a glorious, vac metalized shine to them. It really is mind-blowing what goes through the minds of those at Hasbro. And I've actually watched a few of their live unveiling announcement streams, and the people they have on are such annoying arseholes. The one boy is named Patrick, such a cheesy character, and they love to sort of blow smoke up their own arses with, oh, this is the most amazing thing ever. Yeah, piss off. Give us some retro stuff. I wish I still had my Action Man toys. Yep. The orange training tower with the zip line was superb. I even got an empty Action Man box one Christmas. It was the Action Man Deserter, my dad said. The old ones are always the best. Glow in the Dark was big with us kids. One mate's bedroom, you couldn't sleep in it as it was lit up like a bloody airport with posters and toys. Glow in the Dark slot cars rocked. Yeah, Glow in the Dark stuff was amazing. Again, so simple yet so satisfying as a kid. I remember having a few keychains that I would hold over my bedside light, then turn the light off and just be enthralled that this thing was glowing in the dark. Yep, no R2-D2. And I did mention in a video I did about the Retro Collection how I think they were too quick to announce the Mandalorian wave. They've always announced a new wave in the January with a May release. They announced those, I think, to coincide with the new season of The Mandalorian. And I think they jumped the gun because had they waited till the season finale, they could have given us a Luke Skywalker R2-D2. They could also have given us some of these legacy characters that have appeared in The Mandalorian and done them, by all means, with a Mandalorian card back, but exact copies of the vintage Kenner figures. But I don't know. Is there a sniff of a new Ewok village? I don't know. I've never had the chance to sniff one. I'm sure if it was, but then again, those things aren't necessarily inside sealed bags inside the box. I think the reason that a new figure still has a good smell to it is because it's sealed in that bubble. I'm sure the play sets and vehicles, the smell would dissipate through the box, through the spaces, I think. Thanks for letting me know about the chrome pen. Bought one to turt up an Astromech custom. Cool. Yeah, great product. Slightly expensive for a pen, but the results that it provides are fantastic. So seriously, 2 hours already. So I'm going to try and race through these. Not getting the Mandalorian retro range just seems odd. Yep, great series, but characters don't really stick out. Yeah, that is very true, actually. Ostrak. Scott from Canada here. Hey, Scott. I recall the Mago Mummy and Dracula that had the glow-in-the-dark hands. Wish I still had those. Yeah, that would have been pretty cool. And here's Blake. Anything from eBay or the mail that you're anticipating? I have the orange and gold Mirage, an all-black Optimus Prime, and 13 never-made Star Wars figures from Fan Strike Back and Stan Solo. Yeah, I've got the 13 from Fan Strike Back. I've got a few from Stan Solo, actually. I've got, I think, A-Wing Pilot, Imperial Gunner, is it EV-99? Did I say that right? Leia, Slave, vinyl Jawa cape, And I think also from Fan Strike Back, I may have a carded Boba Fett. I've completely forgotten about that. And currently in the mail from Italy is a Corgi Junior's Spider van. So that's us up to date, I think. So yeah, we've got one more coming in. I'll try and wrap this up in a few minutes. So let me see. I'm reading it off. Again, I've got YouTube here, which is ahead of the StreamYard. Just give me one moment. Okay. This is the Badger. If we're talking about... Hang on, I've lost my place here. All right, anyway, going back to pre-orders, that's one thing that it's very easy to lose track of pre-orders these days because there are so many places offering pre-orders that it's hard to remember what you've pre-ordered. So sometimes you will get a nice surprise in the mail. Okay, here we go. If we're talking pre-Star Wars, it was Micronauts and Action Man for me. Yep, Action Man, one of the greatest toys ever. Micronauts, I remember, but I don't think I had any myself. This is Jason again. I remember I used to carry around a small suitcase of plastic soldiers that was going to my nan, left it on the bus. I got the suitcase back, but the bus company had called out the army to check it was not a bomb. There are so many characters we never got in the original vintage line, like Garindon, Motti, R2Q5, or the Cantina aliens. I don't understand why Hasbro gave us Mandalorian retro figures instead. Yep, you and me both. Makes no sense. None whatsoever. And South Island of New Zealand, the Scots settled weather is the same as Scotland. Dunedin. Oh boy, sorry about that. We didn't mean it. So anyway, that's us at over 2 hours. I can't believe that's flown by. Hope you've all enjoyed it. Hope you've enjoyed talking about toys that we had prior to getting into Star Wars. And all in all, I've had a good time talking about this. Hope you have too. So thank you all. Thank you for the super chat. So please like, please subscribe if you haven't already done so, although why you'd be watching this video if you haven't subscribed is a bit weird. But all in all, once again, thank you and stay tuned for more videos from All Things 80s.